Let's get across the weekend's home auction markets. And around Australia, there were 1,800 auctions. The clearance rate nationally, 62.3%. In Sydney, 675 auctions. That's just down a little on the busiest weeks. The clearance rate a little above 61%. And there are also 1,138 private sales. In Melbourne, 711 auctions and just under 66% of those sold across the state. Also, a further 956 private sales. In Brisbane, just 94 auctions. Almost 65% of those were sold across Greater Queensland. A further 1,032 private sales. In Adelaide, 38 auctions. That's slow. The clearance rate is strong, just under 79%, and another 221 private sales. In Canberra, 41 auctions, 78% cleared, another 86 private sales. And in Perth, just 4 auctions, but 581 private sales. Let's bring in here for the first time in just a little while, REA Group Senior Economist Paul Ryan joins me now. Paul, we heard earlier New South Wales slugging those with holiday homes, extra land tax. But there's an odd twist in that because they're going to use some of that money at least to try and encourage property developers to get more developments off the ground. But this has kind of been tried. Well, Melbourne's got it. Queensland tried it and then pulled it back. So is it going to work in New South Wales?
I think there's two aspects to this. One, as you say, is some of this money is being targeted to build homes for essential workers, for teachers, nurses, police officers, so they can live in Sydney. Sydney, the most expensive city in the country. And the second one is these are pretty marginal changes to the land tax regime in New South Wales. New South Wales has the highest threshold for land tax kicking in of any state at over $1 million.
Which you probably should have because the home values are broadly higher, aren't they?
They are, but at the moment, only around 15% of landlords pay any land tax at all, and that's quite unusual. And what this will do is effectively it'll stop the indexation of those thresholds, and it'll mean that slightly more landlords will start to pay tax.
Do you find it rather unusual, given all the history of New South Wales and property developers and the state government, that a state government is giving financial encouragement for property developers to build more? There have been all sorts of fractious relationships in the past, haven't there?
I think it's the real politic of our times. We need to build more homes, and governments are. The good thing here is they're willing to try lots of different things, try different measures, see what works. I think that's a good approach. And the increased taxation is, I think, a recognition of the fact that, yeah, government finances are stretched. The money has to come from somewhere.
So that being the case, I mean, there's all sorts of other encouragements and enticements out there. So even to international investors coming in to build to rent sort of apartment blocks in the future, to try and get faster approvals, to try and open up land more quickly. All of these things contribute. The question is, bottom line, a property developer, if there's no money in the deal, they ain't going to develop.
Absolutely. That's the big challenge at the moment. That's why we're seeing construction fall well below the targets that the government is aiming for over the next 5 years. We only built 170,000 homes a year in 2023, and we're aiming for 240,000 homes. So, I mean, the big thing the government can do is open up more developable land. That will reduce the price of development. That's what the government can control, really. They can't control, to some extent, labour costs. They can't control materials costs. They can have an impact on how easy it is to get approvals, and they can decide, what the price of land is by determining how much land is available.
Okay, so historically in Australia, Queensland has been the most desirable place to go and develop and to build. Not only got population growth there, but also approvals take very little time. They open up land pretty quickly there. Now that home values are rising so rapidly, especially in that Brisbane CBD area or greater Brisbane area, is that going to actually create a disincentive for more of those housing estates to come out?
It will over the medium term, but if we talk to developers, so we talked to a build-to-rent developer, and they were saying that in Queensland, in Brisbane City Council, they have a dedicated team to deal with just build-to-rent development, and it's much easier to get things approved there because they have a one-stop shop, and that's not the case in places like Sydney and Melbourne. These are the types of things that governments can do to, at the margin, improve conditions for developers and make it so that the developers choose their city to build homes.
Because that's the point, isn't it? If you have a dedicated department that is going to aid the property developer, all they want is speed of execution, because their moment between profit or loss or the length of time it takes to get something done is really the ability to make some money out of that deal.
Absolutely, and certainty. You see a lot of developments that meet development requirements are then held up in court over local protests for some period of time, and that adds uncertainty, and time is money.
All right, so then there's the cost of money. That comes out tomorrow. You have worked for the Reserve Bank in the past, I know. So tell me about the incentive to build and develop based on where interest rates sit right now in our markets.
Clearly, a lot of development isn't stacking up at the moment. As we talked about just then, the cost of materials, the cost of labour, the cost of land, and the cost of financing, which is another big one that the government more generally, of course, the government doesn't control the cost of money, the Reserve Bank does, is all pushing against development at the moment. Now, expectations are that rates will go down, that they're at a high level at the moment. So for a developer that's looking to the future, some of them may be waiting until the cost of financing starts to ease.
It's going to be interesting to watch exactly what takes place. We'll know more tomorrow afternoon when the Reserve Bank hands down that decision. Paul Ryan, as always, many thanks for your time on the program today.
Thank you for having me.